Hi, everybody. I am here with Dr. Perry Johnson, Georgetown's own Dr. Perry Johnson, who is, New Albany born and raised? Am I right
Graduated
about
from New
that?
Albany.
Graduated from New Albany. And we are in his shop. And we are here because Dr. Johnson is a former client of mine and also is the most interesting man in Indiana. And it's true. It's true. You laugh, but it's true. And you can't disprove this. I am drinking coffee right now that Dr. J roasted himself. He roasted this coffee. We're in his shop, and he's going to show you some stuff that he makes because he's also a blacksmith. And he also wrote a book on serial killers, and we'll look at that here in a minute. But, I mean, it's unbelievable, the stuff that this guy does. He does everything. And you're a Republican, but we'll get to that later. So show me this. What do you got here?
This is a finished axe head that I'm making for a friend of mine that is in the reserves and getting ready to deploy to go overseas. And it's for him to take over. And when I'm finally said and done with it, it'll be something that a utility blade that he can use in whatever situation he finds it in, that he needs to be in. This is one piece that I've made, along with several different types of knives and things like that I've made. This is just the hobby I have to work off stress and a little steam and.
Let's look at
Sure.
the knives that if you can spring the trap on those knives.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't want it to spoil any surprises for anybody.
This is one that I've been working on for actually over a year now, and I just have to finish out the handle and making the sheath for it. Actually, my goal is to finish this out by October.
That thing, can you get in close on that, because that thing is cool. Look at that. And you said that's made out of a chainsaw blade?
Yes, actually, there's about 3 chainsaw blades that are in this. This is done. It's called Damascus style, and the way I forged the stock was the chainsaws I placed into a box along with 1520 stained or steel powder, and forged it out in the blacksmith shop.
Cool.
And these are some other ones that I've made. This is actually the handle on this one is actually from the pants of a guy who worked for the FBI.
What? You made it out of pants?
Yeah, this is micarta. It's actually kind of like it's a resin. It's a process. You just put the cloth together in the resin, and press it, and then you can actually work it like wood. So eventually, I'm going to get that to him. And then some of the other ones. This is another one that I made. It's just good utility Tonto blade.
Cool. All right. Well, can we take a look at the blacksmith shop?
Sure. Custom hammer that was built for me, and the anvil and all.
It's a very big hammer, Perry.
It is a 60-pound hammer that I use to make the Damascus and also do a lot of shaping and things like that.
Yeah.
Instead of busting it out with hammers by hand, that makes it a little bit easier and a little bit faster.
But see, this looks more like, when I think about blacksmithing, it's this kind of thing. It's right. It's like the Conan the Barbarian.
Yes.
Sort of, hammering away, but without the propane torch, though.
Well, that's the propane torch is what I've been using to make leaves with.
Cool.
I just need a little bit more directed fire rather than a big fire in the big forge. That was poured in 1849. That's actually my great-grandfather's. So,
all right.
It's multi-generational. And then the forge itself.
And then the forge, yeah, this is
A propane forge and also a coal forge.
Can you lift that up like you did for us before? Look at that. This is so cool. So is this retirement career? I mean, are you going to open a blacksmith shop?
Yes, this is my retirement career. This is my stress reduction. I'd rather be doing this than anything else. So that's just old coal, and the actual forge is underneath all that.
Wow, really, really neat. So, really cool.
And those are ones my grandfather made.
Can you make me like a broadsword for the campaign trail?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. He's not kidding. I was kidding, but he's obviously very serious about this. He's going to. He might actually make me a broadsword.
I am going to make a broadsword.
Okay, now I'm not kidding anymore. This is really exciting.
Yes.
Okay, let's go up the hill and we'll talk about it. Okay, so on the more serious side of things, not that blacksmithing isn't serious. I mean, coffee is very serious. I take that very seriously. But tell people what it is that you do in your day-to-day life.
What I spend my day doing is I'm an addiction therapist. I primarily work with individuals who have drug and alcohol issues. I deal a lot with a lot of people who are dealing with the current opiate epidemic. I work with veterans quite often. Majority of my population is veterans. And what that focus is to help them improve their quality of life, get it away from using. A lot of them are involved with the courts, lost, homes, families, careers, things like that. Mm-hmm. So I spend my day really listening to and helping and working with people who are in a lot of pain, both mentally and physically and emotionally. So that's where I took up things like blacksmithing and woodwork and the
sublimation.
The sublimation.
Yeah. And so, what are the most common problems that you run into in your practice? And then I guess we can start talking about solutions to those problems. But what are the big things? What do you think would surprise people?
I think the thing that would surprise people the most is there really is help available. There's good quality help. It is the direct access to it. Like sometimes with veterans, they're not aware of what's available to them through the system. A lot of people in the community aren't aware. And also, another piece is even though there's good care available, the direct access to that, because most oftentimes people have to become physically bankrupt, financially bankrupt, lose house, home, end up in the court system before they ever get access to treatment.
How do we fix that, though? How do we begin to address that? So first of all, what is the help that you're specifically referring to the extent that you can talk about it, and then how do we make that more available to people who really need it?
Well, the help that I do is as a therapist. Some people refer to it as a drug and alcohol counselor, addiction therapist. It's a lot more in depth than that. But the different levels, there is the traditional therapy, psychotherapy, education, residential, outpatient type services that are available. Also, there's also the medical end of things. The medical side of addiction medicine has improved dramatically. It's not where we would like for it to be, but there's that help that's also available. But ready access to that, once again, isn't always there.
So let me stop you there because I want to make sure that I understand that. So what I've heard a lot is that the sort of trying to treat people with medications is what gets us into this problem with the opiate addiction. Correct. In the first place, right? So traditional medicine sort of creates the problem and then tries to fix its own problem. But you're saying that we're getting better at that with medications.
Right. The medications that are available do show some, do work if used right. But here's where the big piece is: the medical and psychotherapy side oftentimes don't mix. A lot of times patients will just, once they get the medication, the substitute, like the opiate substitutes, like methadone, Suboxone, things like that, they don't follow through with the therapy. And a lot of times with therapy, they are reluctant to go and use the medical.
And I assume that's expensive too.
It can be very expensive and very prohibitive. The thought is that, well, if they have enough money to go out and buy heroin and oxys and roxys and all this kind of thing, they got enough to go pay, a private physician for Suboxone or methadone. Well, it sounds right, but keep in mind what they were doing in order to get the money for the heroin, the oxys, was illegal. So the implication is they got to continue with illegal behavior in order to get the medication. They need to be better. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it can be very cost prohibitive for people to get the help they need, and also the access to the therapy. which can be very cost prohibitive. I mean, it's like, we can't work for free. I can't work for free, student loans and all that kind of thing. So unfortunately, I can't just, just do it, be altruistic and provide service. But at the same
You
time,
mean you haven't become independently wealthy as an addiction therapist?
no, actually, the low man on the totem pole as far as no.
Maybe when you start selling swords.
That's
we'll,
true.
we'll talk about it. We'll talk business plan. So how do we solve the problem of access? Because that seems to me to be, sort of at the heart of a lot of the stuff that you're talking about.
I think a good way of, and this has been kind of the way I've approached things, is access to medical care needs to be somewhat more universal rather than through, what my insurance will pay or what the government will pay or what I can pay out of pocket, that type of thing. Other countries actually, in my opinion, have better success at treating addictions. One, because of their laws, and also because of their access to the help that they, that's through meds and through therapy. For us, I think in this country and in my arena, being more open about it, we need some kind of level of advertisement to get out there and be actually looking for them in a little bit more direct fashion. Also, making it that it's not cost prohibitive, like I said, like the universal type care.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of insurance companies, a lot of third-party payers will say, we'll pay X number of dollars if you haven't achieved, success in your treatment at this point. You're out of luck. Well, the thing about it is, in addictions, it's not something that's a one-shot deal and you're done. It is a long-term process. You have to keep in mind, a lot of people with addictions, it didn't take them overnight to get there. And it was a long process. We're talking sometimes not only months, but years and decades. So they're not going to get better overnight. And the misconception about addictions treatment is to get them just to stop. Believe it or not, the easiest part of addictions treatment is abstinence.
Mm-hmm.
You can get anybody to stop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they passed out, they ran out, got locked up, they'll stop. The problem is keeping them stopped. Keep them abstinent, keep them moving forward in recovery, replacing that addiction. If a person doesn't find a reward in being sober, they're not going to stay sober. Somebody who was active in the illegal lifestyle to support their addiction suddenly isn't active in that lifestyle anymore, or has some consequences and can, not active in the addiction, but what are they doing to support themselves? Believe it or not, the lifestyle, the money in addictions is pretty good.
Yeah.
Addiction therapist, dope dealer. I mean, come on.
I can't recommend that as a career change for anybody, and I don't think that's what Dr.
No,
Johnson
not
is
at
saying.
all.
Just to be clear,
But it's that's the gravity or the pull that a lot of people go back to is on the financial side.
mm-hmm.
Like I was saying earlier, a lot of people get into treatment because they're bankrupt in some form or fashion, or some kind of consequences. Something that's devastating has happened to their life. They've gone from being the functional addict to being, socially unfunctional, and because of that, a lot of times, they don't have a place to live. They don't have food to eat. Can't get a job. Those type of things. A lot of people aren't able to get employment because of criminal records and things like that. But also, when it comes to to recovery and to addictions treatment, that idea of it's not done overnight. It has to be a process. How do you balance out trying to get your life back together again, take care of your family, go to work, all this, and also at the same time take care of your health and your addiction and everything else? And that's oftentimes that stressor is what causes people to go back and use.
Yeah.
So it's not about just not using; it's about the lifestyle changes and what they find.
Yeah. Okay. So consistency to access to mental health services, right? I guess that's where the psychotherapy
Yes.
component comes in too,
Yes.
and that
Very
really
much so.
looms large. Public education,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then accessibility, affordability
Correct.
of mental health services, and sort of traditional medicine, right?
Right.
That's what I'm hearing overall.
Yeah, a lot of people, their health is very poor. They haven't seen a physician or done any medical care for years because of their active use, and the doctors didn't deliberately cause them to become addicted to it. It wasn't. It's a combination of several different things.
There's a story I hear time and time again, because we filed that medical marijuana case, and
Right.
that was specifically on behalf of people who tell that exactly the same story that you're telling, where it's like you have chronic pain and you're doing what you're supposed to do to deal with that chronic pain. You're going to your doctor and you're taking the medicine that you're supposed to take, and all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're an addict. Right, and this is a story I've heard a lot, and it's I think that people have this perception of drug addicts as people that are just like derelict, or they just wake up and decide I'm going to be a drug addict one day. It's just not that simple.
No, it's not, and the panic that they're suddenly an addict, we can't give them anymore. Then what do you do? And if you just abruptly stop, the withdrawal from heroin won't kill you. Or withdrawal from opiates won't kill you, but man, you sure wish you would die. It can be that bad.
Yeah.
So people look for their own alternatives. They do that. I hate to use the phrase, but their own self-medication, and that's why heroin started to make such a major comeback, because when the pharmacy or the laws of the pharmacological opiates were changed, oxys and the access and all that. I mean, it just created an open market for heroin.
So if you could be in control of the government, I make you king for a day. You're
cool. King
Dr. Perry Johnson for a day. You get to do whatever you want with policy or anything. What do you do? How do you fix things?
The first thing I would do is make it rule of the land. Addiction is a medical, treatable problem, and let the professionals make the decisions on what needs to happen with the patient. Period. And
as opposed to a criminal justice problem. Okay.
Correct. I think oftentimes that people only get into treatment when the criminal justice system steps in, because physicians are oftentimes and clinicians are oftentimes unable to do what we need to do. For example, many times I work with family members who call me up and say, my husband, my son, my wife, my girlfriend, my sister is killing themselves. They're drinking themselves to death. They're going to die from overdose. I couldn't tell you how many patients I've lost this last couple of years in overdoses that should not have died. And the only thing I could tell them is, there's nothing I can do. Try and talk them into coming to treatment. Well, here's the thing. If somebody is suicidal, they're considered to be somewhat mentally incompetent, and they can be held on a 72-hour hold and evaluated. Okay. Well, when somebody's actively using, and this is you said make me king for a day.
Yeah, no. This is your universe.
When somebody's actively using, most times that I have found, 99.9% of the time, they do want to stop. They don't like the crazy. They don't want to get up in the morning and their main goal for the day is to find their next use. Going to court, having other people, control their lives. It's literally being somebody who's active in an addiction, especially an opioid addiction. They have no quality of life. It's just all about the use. All right. If we can hold somebody who is homicidal or suicidal for 24 hours, to give them a brief time out, or hold them for 72 hours, to give them a brief time out in order to get them stable and actually forced. Why couldn't we do something along the lines with somebody who is actively using? Okay, granted, all right, people say, well, it's your choice to use or not to use.
Sometimes yes and sometimes no.
Well, I think there comes a point where you might think they're choosing to use. They're just choosing not to be in pain, is what it is. They're choosing, it's like being on fire, and physically on fire, and an elephant is urinating, and that's the only source of water around. Are you going to go get underneath that elephant to put the fire out? Hell, yes, you are. Now, if you're not on fire and the elephant's taking a leak, are you going to get underneath them? No. Think about the situation here. When somebody's actively using, especially like with opiates and meth and things like that, they are not able to really stop on their own because the withdrawal and the pain of that is so significant that they would rather use than feel like they're going to die. All right? Are they in their right mind? I would have to say no. I know some of my colleagues are going to disagree with me on that, but I think
it's a better intervention than the long arm of the law. I think is what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Until you have to spend 30 days in jail or something like that to be able to get the services you need. Why do we have to get to that point?
And here's the thing: they go to jail for 30 days, 60 days, whatever, or years. But do they get the treatment they need? No, they don't.
Right.
Instead, they're just the idea is, they're detox. Well, yeah, but you're not treating the problem.
Yeah.
Right? It's easy to get somebody to stop using. It's what they do afterwards. So that's where doing that intervention, that level of societal intervention, to get them to a level of detox, to be able to get them into that level of care that they need.
Mm-hmm. And then affordable, accessible care after that.
Because we're just talking about quality of life here.
Yeah.
A person who is active in addiction, that's not a quality of life. Nobody chooses to be physically bankrupt, financially bankrupt, emotionally bankrupt. They don't choose that.
Mm-hmm.
But the message they're getting is, well, you chose to use. It's your tough luck. I don't buy that.
No. I appreciate the work that you are doing. It is truly the Lord's work, and I know that it's thankless, and I hope that your patients appreciate you every day. And even if they don't, it's not because you're not doing good work. So we need more like you.
Well, thank you. One of the things, when somebody asks me what I do, I didn't say this earlier, but I'll say it to you now, is I joyfully screw up other people's drinking and driving.
Right, which is why I say maybe they don't appreciate it so much. But
So, and that to me is, I appreciate the opportunity to kind of share that my thoughts on that.
Now, speaking of urinating elephants, you are a lifelong Republican.
Yes.
Am I correct about that?
I
And now
am.
I'm going to hold your feet to the fire on
Yes,
this.
I voted for Ronald Reagan and every Republican up until recent.
Okay. Well, I won't get into details on that. So, being a lifelong Indiana Republican, you know that you and I have talked a little bit about our campaign and what we're doing here, and you support this campaign, which is probably the most progressive campaign that's ever been run in the state of Indiana.
Correct.
To the extent that you are comfortable with it, you don't think they're going to revoke your card someplace. Tell people why.
I have been a lifelong Republican. I'm also a veteran as well. But at this point, I'm not happy. I'm not happy with the way my party of tradition has gone. And Dan, I've known you for over a decade now, and I really appreciate what you're doing. And the idea of just the integrity is what I'm supporting. And whether I say I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, okay, yeah, all right, let's put some labels to it, but let's call it what it really is. I'm an American. I fought for this country. I believe in equal rights. I believe that health care for everybody. I believe we should be able to sit here and have this conversation. I believe that if a man and a man want to get married, a woman and a woman, they should do that. That has nothing to do with Republican. It has nothing to do with Democrat. That has something to do with just plain
Humanity.
humanity.
Yeah.
So, and you have always struck me as being a man of integrity and honesty. I admire what you did with the court cases that with the same-sex marriages, with a lot of the things I've seen you do, with what you did for me 10 years ago. That's the reason I'm supporting you, and I'm willing to. If I need to say I renounce being a Republican or become a Democrat,
you do not have to do any such thing, because
But
I'm
if
not
it-
really all that hung up
but
on
if
the
it
labels either.
emotionally blackmails you enough to do this, then I'm willing to do that and
All right.
support that.
Well, very good.
So,
I'll take that kind of
I
blackmail
will.
any day.
I will officially say I will join, and I am joining the Democratic Party, and will be voting for Dan Canon in this next election, simply because I believe exactly who you are and the integrity you show, and honesty and the faith that you have my best interest as well as everybody else in our community's interest at heart. So.
That's an endorsement from the most interesting man in Indiana, and you just can't ask for much better than that. Thanks, Doc. I appreciate
My pleasure.
it. Thanks for talking to us. Dr. Perry Johnson, he's what's your book called, Perry?
Anatomy of a Serial Killer. It's co-authored with Don Bittner. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
Wherever you get
Yeah.
your fine literature.
So
And
it's
look
available and email or ebook download.
and look for his swords in a store near you in about the next decade or so, I'd say.
I'm gonna have to make a good wizard sword for you.
All right. Dr. Perry Johnson, we love him and we love you, and we'll see you soon.